What's up, guys? Welcome to Gwhisky. I'm Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below, and with that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today we're looking at the Glenfarclas 105. Stick around. Okay, so I've been doing quite a few re-reviews recently, and I thought, hey, this one. Actually, truth be told, I didn't really care to come back to this one, but my friend picked it up. It's his bottle, and we've been drinking it together recently, and I figured, let's come back to it. It's been a while. Let's see where it's at in 2024. The last time I looked at it, I didn't love it. I scored it an 81, and that score would be lower with my updated scoring system. And this is just a whiskey that I never got it. I never connected with it. I never loved it. I remember people always used to compare this one to Aberlour Abana. I'm not sure if people are still doing that, but for me, that was always crazy. Now, Abana is not as good as it used to be. It was much better back in the day. That's true of a lot of whiskeys. But even now, in my opinion, Abana is massively better than this stuff. Now, these two whiskeys are in the same style, the same genre of whiskey in the sense that they're both cask strength sherry bombs. But this one I always found to be much rougher, simpler, and harsher than the Abana. It was just never close for me. So our big question for today is, has this improved? Is the 105 like a fine wine that just gets better with time, or does it age like a fine milk and get shittier? Now, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I'm clearly not very optimistic about this one. This whiskey has hurt me before, but like a toxic ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend, it's always a good idea to come crawling back and give them a second chance. Because I mean, really, what are the odds that they're going to hurt you again? Granted, fine, probably quite high, but you never really know. By the way, I am thinking of branching the channel out into giving relationship advice, so go ahead and smash that like button if you think that's a terrible idea. Anyway, what else can I say about this one? We have both bourbon and sherry barrels in the mix. It's no age stated, it's cask strength, and it's a beast. It's one of the OG sherry bombs, so it does have a fair amount of respect within the community. Just not so much for me. Regardless, let's see where we land on it today. Let's jump into our review. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that would be greatly appreciated. For specs, this one is a big boy, 60%, non-chill filtered, natural color. So I don't really like this bottle. I think it's ugly. I think it's a bit boring. I much prefer the standard Glenfarclas look, which, granted, I still don't love, but I think it's more interesting than this. I think there might be some psychology at work here because traditionally I've just not connected with this bottle, so that might be a factor. Still, for look, I'll give this 1.5 out of 5. This does not say non-chill filtered or natural color. In fact, it doesn't really say much. It does say to add water. There's nothing about tasting notes or cask breakdown. Very limited information here. Also, did I mention I think the bottle's ugly? I did add water here. On the nose, this is very big, lots of sherry, lots of red fruits. I get stuff like strawberry jam, raspberry jam, lots of blackberries, lots of berry preserve type notes in here. There's also some slightly sour plums. There's some rhubarb. There's also cinnamon, there's Christmas cake, there's orange zest, a very faint nuttiness, and a little touch of licorice in here. It's not bad. On the palate and finish, we get a big hit of sherry and spices in here. We get stuff like pepper, cinnamon, anise, cardamom. This is quite hot, so water helps. We get some orange oil, we get some chocolate, kind of like a dark chocolate with cherry liqueur in there that you get in those chocolate gift boxes. And that leads into a long finish with lingering orange, cinnamon, and pepper. Okay, so this is better than I remember. I still don't love it. I still think it's a bit of a rough whiskey, but what's improved here is that while it is still a little bit harsh, it's rounder and it's more palatable than I remember. Obviously, this was never going to be a gentle whiskey, so it is at its best with some water added. What I think has improved a lot here is I used to get this kind of lingering metallic note on the finish. I'm not picking that up here, and it's also far less astringent than a lot of my previous batches of 105. And that's not to say it's not astringent at all. It is a little bit, but yeah, it's softer, it's rounder, and maybe a little bit more mature. This one doesn't hit quite as youthful as some of my previous bottles, and I do like our orange notes, our berry notes, our chocolate notes in here. It's not bad. The burn that we do get here is more on spices, so more like cinnamon, anise, maybe a touch of pepper, and that's a big step up from a lot of the older batches where the burn was more on nickels, rusty nails, and a touch of battery acid, so better. The last bottle I had from the 105 was a 2021 batch, I believe, and this one, as I said, better. I can get behind this one. I don't think it's great. It's simple, it's loud, it's fruity, it's intense, it's unpretentious, but it works. Also, as I said, this one does taste slightly more mature than the last batch. Don't get me wrong, this is not an old whiskey. This is a young whiskey, but it's just, again, more rounded, and maybe it's got a little bit more time in the cask than that last one. I don't know. Either way, there's a pretty dramatic discrepancy between this batch and the one I had a few years back. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest the same thing here as what I did in my last video from a few years ago and say, please give us batches of this. So far, batches have worked really well for the Aberlour A'bunadh. It would give more context to the consumer, and it might even boost sales. Who knows? Not me. I don't know. I don't know anything about marketing. I've been trying to sell the same bread maker on Facebook Marketplace for the past year. No dice. But still, batches, I think it's a great idea. It's something you can think about. And, I mean, I don't know why I'm assuming that Mr. Farclas is watching. I'm sure Glenn has better things to do. Anyway, this one is still not on the same level as Aberlour A'bunadh, in my opinion. It's not even that close, but that said, it is still one of the better bottles of Glenfarclas 105 that I've had, at least that I can remember. And what's nice about this one is that I don't mind drinking it straight. Now, granted, it's not my bottle, but if it was mine, I wouldn't mind drinking it through as is. But the thing is, some of you are going to land on lesser batches. And when that happens, I'm going to give you a suggestion that I saw in the comments under my last review of this stuff, and that's add this to underpowered whiskeys. So basically, if you've got a whiskey and it's at 40%, it tastes good, but you want to add a bit of kick to it, a few drops of this is going to help things along. And I think that's a really cool idea. For score, I'm going to land on 82, which granted is not a great score, and I don't think it's a great whiskey. It's still a bit hot, it's still quite young, but it delivers on the promise. You want a bold, loud, brash, cask strength sherried whiskey, you got it right here. So at the end of the day, I think a lot of people will be happy with this one just because I think most people, when they buy it, they know what they're getting into and they know what they want from this whiskey. And yeah, it does deliver. So not a bad deal and not a bad value, which we'll get to in a second. Before we get to value though, I do want to give a quick thank you to all my patrons, all my channel members. Thank you very much for all your support. And if any of you out there want to help keep the channel financially sustainable and independent, there are a number of ways you can help. I have links to Patreon and PayPal down below. Anything and everything helps there, guys. And once again, big thank you to all of you out there who are already supporting the channel. Now let's talk value. So I've always been pretty critical of this one for its youth and its harshness, and it's just not my style of whiskey. All of that's still true, but I've never been able to fault this one for value. It's good value. This stuff comes in liter bottles at very fair prices. In my market, this sells for about $40, just over 30 pounds. And I think for that, for what you're getting, the high ABV, the natural presentation, and the intensity, it's a great deal. All right, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help out the channel, as I said, I've got Patreon and PayPal links down below. I want to hear from you guys. Have you tried the 105? What are your thoughts? Do you think it's good value? Are you a fan? Let me know all of that down below. Finally, down below, you can tell me what you want to see me review down the line, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.